Both of y'all have just come off writing devotionals. And because you would both call your books devotionals, which is really neat because it's always fun to have a 1 or 2 page. I'm reading a book right now that's like a 2-page every chapter, and I'm loving it because I'm actually getting through chapters. I feel so good.
Something.
I do. I feel like I'm accomplishing something. Is there, in your books, both of you, is there one that really hit home that you sit there and go, this one resonated, it's still resonating with me? And because I'm guessing if it does, it's going to resonate with all of us. You go.
Well, for me, it's really the topic that is a constant thing for me. I'm a yes person. One of the things that we talk about mine is a series of videos. So it's a free app with 4 videos and some funny vignettes and stuff that go with it. And then the 28-day devotional is a sort of goes along with it. But for me, we boil it down to 4 fears. We say yes when we shouldn't say yes and all that because of fear of missing out, fear of not mattering, fear of falling behind, and fear of disappointing people. And for me, my kind of root fear for getting everything out of whack is that fear of disappointing people. So the chapter, the week where we talk about that is really all of those. It was a constant renewing of the mind for me, topic-wise, not necessarily one devotional.
Yeah, to me, I would kind of agree with that because I think Church of the Small Things was kind of the journey, and then the devotional is Everyday Holy, which is finding God in all the little pieces. So to me, it was like God just kept bringing me back to this place of like, I'm in your everyday life. Like, because I felt like there was all this pressure after I wrote books where you kind of look at what other people are doing, and I felt like I should be doing all this other stuff, but I was like, but I really just like to be home and watch Netflix, and so can I do that, God? And so I want to serve you while I'm on my couch. So I think it's just finding God in the day-to-day stuff. And so to me, too, it was the same. Like it was topical more than just one specific thing.
I think that's good, especially, and like I said earlier, part of the reason we were so glad you were coming at this time of the year is because it is about to hit. Mm-hmm. And it's brutal. It's like Christmas, but you don't get a present, at it. And so, practically speaking, a couple of things to get through it where you're breathing and actually believing that it's not ruling over you.
Well, my kids are all 20 months apart. And so there were some years that were just crazy, crazy, crazy years. Both of my boys played baseball, and we had one season where Allie was playing softball. And all of those are those spring things. And Chris Wills and I, our boys played together, and Allie and Maggie played, and we spent a lot of hours on the bleachers together. But one thing that I would say, and I'm frequently, since the study came out, I've been asked, well, what do you do if you're just in a season where you just can't have breathing room? And I think for a lot of us as moms, spring is like that. I remember saying so many times, May is way busier than December. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think is important to remember is there are problems to solve and there are tensions to manage. And some of the things that get thrown at us aren't solvable problems. May is not a solvable problem. It is a tension to manage. And so you look at your calendar and you go, you know what? This is going to be a crazy 4 weeks. How can we as a family have some dinner time together? Or how can we, get to the end of May and still all like each other? And just maybe thinking of some practical things, getting creative with the calendar, all of that is you just have to realize there is a difference between a problem to solve and a tension to manage. And sometimes getting through certain seasons is just simply a tension to manage rather than how can we solve this.
Very good. It's really good. Anything else?
No.
I mean, we're all like, yes, I love that. Yeah. Problems to solve and tensions to manage.
That was good. I think, because I just think that you're going to have, there's busy seasons of life, and I think you just have to, it is what it is, and you kind of roll with it. And it's, I told my daughter, after spring break was over, I was like, look, we got 10 weeks left. We got to finish strong, just like buck up.
Just being a cheerleader.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we can do. Like, we just got to plow on through. So
I counted. The Mondays. I really did. And it's sort of scary. I hate that time goes fast. Does anybody have a question?
As a mom of 2 young kids, what is just a phrase you prayed over your children when they were younger? Like great. Just thinking in stages.
For Caroline, I just have always prayed. My thing has always been God, she's yours. I mean, like, just make her into the woman that you want her to be and not who I want her to be. Because Caroline is, she's so different from me, which I love, but so I can't raise her according to how I feel because she never feels the way I feel about stuff. She's much more like her father, and I say his life motto is if you don't like me, then something's wrong with you. And that's how Caroline goes through life, which is great. But I don't relate to it at all. So to me, that's always been my prayer, is like, God, make her into who you created her to be, and don't let me mess that up.
Get in the way. One of the things that we prayed for our kids that really we started before they even had any vocabulary words, and we just would get on our knees with them and say, and get them to repeat after us, and we just hoped that it would carry through their future. We would pray, God, would you help us to have the wisdom to know what's right, but the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. And man, as they got older, we would find opportunities to celebrate it like crazy. If we saw them making a decision that was hard because they knew it was right, even if they were the only ones, and especially if they were the only ones, we celebrated it like crazy. We just had, you got the special plate at dinner if you, and so, we bribed kids and stuff and all that too, but that was our prayer, God, and we just wanted them, especially as they got into middle school and high school, to be able to recognize what's right and have the courage to do it, even if they're the only ones doing it. So that was just a big prayer for us. Help us to have the wisdom to know what's right, the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard.
What a cool thing to do even with your friends, because I think it's hard.
Yeah.
And I love that both of y'all bring out just you're walking it together, and to be honest about it, because my goodness, we are all in it.
And they did not always do what was right,
No.
even when they knew what was. FYI.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do. It's like, give yourself a break. Anybody else? Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely
Well, I know the
not.
answer, but so I'm tricking you into that. I know the answer. Sandra, I went to your church, and so I think I want to thank you first from watching you from afar. Tell us what it's like to be a pastor's wife and maybe make decisions that you made decisions that were maybe unpopular, like what a pastor's wife. You weren't as involved as I think people have thought you were going to be. So tell us how you made hard choices as a mom and a pastor's wife.
Yeah, during the early years, when you're a pastor's wife, regardless of church size, and I think it's truer probably in a smaller church than in a big church, but people have expectations, serious expectations about what you might do and say and wear and look like and respond, just kind of everything. But I just decided early on, when my kids were young, I did not want to miss anything. I just didn't want to miss the good stuff of their childhood. And I just had seasons where I had categorical no's. There were just, seasons where we homeschooled for a few years early on, for about 10 years, more than a few, and then we tossed them into the biggest high school in Atlanta to say, hey, see how you like that. Here's the thing, too, about homeschooling. I'm patient mostly, and there were many times where I was not, but there was one time I was so mad. Usually it was my middle one, and so I was so mad at him, and I don't even remember now exactly what it was about, but I slammed my hand on the table, and I know what it was. I was trying to get him to hold the paper. I'm trying to teach these children to write, and you hold the paper and you write, and he would never hold paper, so the paper's going all over the place, and I slammed my hand on the table. I said, hold the dadgum paper. And that is the one thing they remember of 10 years of homeschooling. I'm really not kidding. Something will come up about homeschooling. They're like, yeah, remember that time when mom got mad? So anyway. But back to your question, Courtney. I really just decided I don't want to miss the good stuff of life, and that was a hard pill for some people to swallow because they had expectations that I should be doing a women's ministry or whatever, and I just didn't, and it wasn't a character thing of mine. It was just a selfish thing, probably. I just didn't want to miss anything, and I wasn't willing to give that up. I knew it was a season, and it was going to go quick, and I had other seasons to serve and to do different things later. And I found smaller ways to serve during those years, but I just didn't want to miss the good stuff. I knew I couldn't get it back.
Okay, so speaking of expectations, because that's a huge part of contentment, and both of y'all, Sandra's written a book on comparison too, called The Comparison Trap, and it is something that we all deal with. And so expectations definitely play a role in that. How did y'all deal with that at all in any of your material, even thinking about Breathing Room and Church of the Small Things, the way that things like expectations can mess with our thoughts and our contentment.
I mean, I think for me, it was almost letting go of my own expectations of myself. You know, I just think I think for me, one of my biggest struggles is I have a really difficult to non-existent relationship with my own mother, and so I think that I went into motherhood as I was going to be the perfect mom, like I was going to do it all right. And at one point, I think Caroline was about 7, and my husband said, "You are going to kill yourself if you try to keep this pace up. Like, you can't do it. You can't be her everything." And so I think it was letting go of my expectations almost to myself other than other people's, because I don't feel like I've ever had, and y'all appreciate, those of you who know Jen Klaus was my college roommate, and she used to always laugh at me. She was like, "You'll just tell anybody no." And I'm like, "Yeah, I will. I have no problem saying no. Can you go to lunch? No, I can't. I'm real," and a lot of it's just because I'm real non-committal, and so I'm just like, maybe, I don't know, probably not. So I don't worry as much about other people's expectations as the expectations I put on myself. So that's...
For me, I operate by a calendar, and it is completely the other end of the spectrum. And if it is not on my calendar, it's just not going to happen. I mean, it's, and I have my to-do list in the mornings, and I invite the Lord to edit my to-do list as He will, as if, I need to invite Him to do that. But it messes me up when He does, a little bit. And but I think for me, that to answer your question, Kay, it goes back to a kind of a core group of fears that can sometimes drive us to say yes to those expectations, even when we know that's either not our calling or it's not the season to say yes. And I just learned early on, a no for now doesn't mean a no for always. I can say no now, and if that opportunity comes back around later, then it'll be maybe a yes. But for now, I just had to kind of define what my yeses and nos were going to be. But I like, but again, I've got my boxes and all that, so, it's a little
I've
bit
never had a
different.
box or a calendar.
Yeah, Sandra's in an out-of-the-box. She's the meat in the out-of-the-box sandwich, because I don't either. I don't even know. Not quite sure what today is. Yeah. But we're here. And I know.
Melanie, what was going on that perhaps brought you to write the book, Church of the Small Things?
I think it was really... it really was my own struggle at that point. I had written 3 books before that, and they had done really well, and I was just at this point of kind of figuring out. And I think it's weird, because I feel like this Christian speaking writing world is, there again, it goes back to, it's on Instagram and Twitter now, and so you see what everybody else is doing and other opportunities and things, and it was just that pressure of, am I supposed to be doing that, or why is that not happening for me, or whatever. And it was just really God, to me, my journey of God bringing me back to, like, I've put you in your home, in your community, in your family. That's where you're supposed to be. And just, it was really, I wrote it as a reminder to myself I've got to walk my road and not look at somebody else's road. So that was kind of what brought me there.
Can you tell us about your new book?
The devotional book.
Yeah, the new one is released in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yeah, so it's called Everyday Holy. It's back there. It's got a cute little owl named Richard on the front. His name's Richard. Yeah, his name's Richard because the artist named him Richard. And so the original Richard was Richard with a cup of espresso. And I was like, I want Richard on the cover. So Richard's on the cover of that book. And it's just a 100-day devotional. So it's just 100 days of just scripture and like little stories. It's kind of, if you've read my blog, it's kind of like my blog. I mean, some are serious, some are funny. It's just, just a little scripture, and then here's a little food for thought. So that's it. You had a question.
When both of you write, do you wait for inspiration, or do you block times in your schedule, and that's a committed time? Well, I guess I could.
You have
Melanie
blocks.
is the real writer. She's a writer. I'm an engineer. And this was something, and here's the thing too, with Andy being a pastor, he did Comparison Trap as a sermon series, and he also did Breathing Room as a sermon series. And I'm married to him, so I can legally steal all of his intellectual property. So we took his sermon series, and a team and I, and did the video, made it into, just honed it to make it something for women, because both of those are such, they're an everybody issue, but they are such women's issues. Mm-hmm. And then writing the devotional was just fun for me, but I'm not a real writer. So this is, she's written a million books and is educated that way in order to do it. So she's a real writer. So you'll have to ask her that question.
I mean, I think for me it's a mix. I mean, I can feel like right now I'm supposed to have another book written by the end of the year, which stresses me out. And at some point I'm going to have to sit and make myself just do it, because I won't. I'll find a million things to do. I do not calendar it in. I don't schedule any time. But I can also tell that it's starting to come together, because when I quit sleeping at night, that's how I know. I'm starting to have ideas, and I have stuff written in my phone and all that. So at some point, I'm going to have to make myself sit and start to gather all those thoughts. But I kind of dread it, because it's, to me, I always say, like, my husband really kind of hates when I'm writing a book, because I live in my own head so much, and I'm putting so much out there that I have nothing to say to him. So, like, we'll go like 6 months without talking, because I feel like I've talked a lot, but I'm just so tired. It's so mentally tiring. And I think parenting a teenager is so mentally tiring that I'm just not ready to be that tired. But at some point, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, at some point, I'm gonna be in trouble if I don't. So that's it.
Okay, one more question, and then we'd love for Sandra and Melanie just to, if y'all want to look at their books or go say hi. Are y'all okay with going and get a cupcake? There's coffee over here. Oh my gosh, that's a thumbprint. That is a Celebrity Bakery thumbprint. I love food, and so that is some yummy stuff. All right, anybody else with a question? Oh, sorry.
If you're feeling the urge to write or say something, how do you fight someone else started to set it better? Or someone else started to put that content out there? And when you have two kids that move too, how do you start?
I'm going to tell you what my very first literary agent said to me, because when I was writing Sparkly Green Earrings, I was like, this is about motherhood. I mean, everybody's talked about potty training. Nobody has said what you are trying to say in your words. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, you're not going to come up with an idea that nobody's written about, but your spin on it and what you put into it is your unique take on that thing. And so don't discount that, because if you're waiting to come up with an original idea, it's not going to happen. But it's your voice.
Particular topic. Is there a book that you would really like to write, if you could wave your magic wand, that may be completely off topic?
I think I would probably tell a few more inappropriate jokes in my books if I thought I could. I mean,
like
not
Melanie
bad.
Dale.
I just feel like I have to censor myself a little bit more, because it's going to come back to me and they're going to say, Lifeway's not going to carry this book. And so that's... It's not bad, it's just my sense of humor. Yeah, so thank you. There you go. Thank you. So Logos will carry it. So just know if my next book. If it's not at Lifeway. No, I mean, I joke about, like, I always say there's a book I want to write that I would either call Burn It All Down, and I would tell everybody what I really think about, like, social media and Twitter and everything, or there's a book that I would love to write kind of a little bit more about my childhood and all that, but I can't. I always say that book's going to be called Now That Everybody's Dead. Like, I can write it in like 30 years. So that's, yeah.
What about you, Sandra?
Andy and I are asked a lot to write parenting books, so that may be coming later, but there's not. Again, it's, I kind of got pulled into this, and I have enjoyed every minute of it, but, again, I haven't had that burning desire, to be a writer and all that. And for me, it really is about stewarding my platform of influence well, and I recognize that I have it. We all have different kinds of, platforms of influence, but I really do want to be a good steward of it. And again, it's seasons. Andy and I have been fostering for about 8 years, and we just fairly recently transitioned our foster daughter to an independent living program since she turned 18. And so I have a lot more freedom right now than I have, so I'm kind of thinking through some things. But there's not a burning, topic or anything that I'm just dying to write about. So just kind of as the Lord leads.
Well, I just can't thank you guys enough for coming and for sharing. I hope everybody's very much encouraged and that your cup is filled, and that you hear more than anything just, the unique giftedness and purpose that each person in this room has, because the Lord gave it to you for a reason. And don't ever doubt it or put it down. And I love Lucy, my daughter Lucy over here, sorry. She knew the Mulan quote instantly. And one of her favorite Bible verses is that one from Zechariah. And the wall of fire is built around you. It's not built by you. It's around you by the one who's over fire. And that's how precious you are, really. So if you walk out tonight with anything, please have your cup be filled with truth. And we can't thank you enough for sharing it. And so, anyway, y'all, I don't even know how to end it. So, happy day. Thanks so much for coming.